So Maul and DJ Head had their long-awaited battle. A lot of you have probably seen it. There were clips surfacing all over Twitter yesterday, all over Instagram yesterday. And it was a pretty heated conversation at some points, but they both kept it very respectful. But there were a lot of moments that I kind of wanted to jump in and say things, and there was things that I felt like needed to be responded to, both on Maul and Head side. But specifically certain things that Maul said that I did want to address. It was great to watch. First of all, my thoughts as a fan, as a co-host of Head. I was proud. I feel like he went in not wanting to do all the theatrics. He had said on our podcast, I want to just go in and have a conversation. This week when we were talking about what was going to happen, we filmed on Thursday morning and they ended up filming on Thursday afternoon. So it was pregame and I was asking him if he was ready for the big debate. And he said, I told him I didn't want to do all the theatrics. And I was like, but you know how this goes. They still ended up making it into somewhat of a debate. I actually had submitted some questions to Rory ahead of time. He asked me for some debate topics. So I sent those through. Shout out to him and Damaris for, holding it down as the moderators the entire time. As a fan, I was excited to witness it. I actually watched the whole 2.5 hours over the course of a day and a half. Entertaining conversation. I feel like we've seen kind of both of them become the figureheads for their respective sides over the last year and a half. Of course, Head has had a relationship with Kendrick, as he said, for 18 plus years. And it was interesting to see, Maul speak about his relationship with Drake, where it seems like they've been industry friends for maybe a decade or so, but, have gotten closer over the last 2-3 years, he said. And definitely throughout the course of the battle, he became the source for any leaked information from Drake's side or any, info about what was happening on that camp side or how they were thinking about things. So it was cool to see them in the same room. Even though it wasn't, a quote unquote debate, there were definitely things beyond the winner, and who won, which clearly wasn't a debate. There were things that I think were interesting to see and hear both sides' perspectives from. But let me know what you guys thought of it in the comments, if there were specific parts that aggravated you, if there were specific parts that you were excited to see. But I thought Head handled himself really well. You know how poised and stoic he is and what he's been talking about, he's been on. So he kind of remained very even-keeled and he would laugh a lot. There was times where I feel like Maul was saying things that to me, I was laughing about also, but to see him kind of break his stoic character, not to say he's a character, but just his stoic representation where he's not smiling all the time and him laughing. I think that was one of my favorite parts. A couple things that Maul said, but let's jump right into it. Also, I do want to say before I get into this, I know my name was brought up towards the end, so shout out to Rory. He gave me a shout out, and Maul did mention a couple times how he said Jeremy had said some slick shit about him over the course of, interactions. I will say that is correct. I did throw some slick shade towards Maul, but Maul, if you are watching this, I want to say I was inheriting those shots from when you were throwing some at DJ Head. So of course, this was all friendly fire. This was, a little Cold War back and forth between your show and our show. I don't know Maul personally. We've never met, so I have no ill feeling towards him, no malice on my side. Shout out to the clips. But yeah, it's all love. I'm glad the podcast kind of got to sit down with each other and the worlds merged. And it seems like me and Rory, the white boy back and forth, it has been fully pieced up. And Maul, if we do ever meet, we can talk and hopefully piece up in person. Maybe we do another a joint universe show. If you guys want that, let us know. Maybe we do a full, next time they're in LA, a full Rory and Maul and the bigger picture mashup. Or maybe you don't want that. Let us know that too. But I think it could be kind of cool. But let me get into what Maul said. So the first thing that I want to address was the conversation about delusion. Okay, so DJ Head called Maul delusional at points. He said there are certain things that Maul has said in the past that appear to be delusional, and he kind of broke down in his point that if your mind is not willing to be changed, if you're not open to hearing another opinion and you're set in stone in what you think, that may come off as delusional. Now, Rory and Damaris both pushed back on this, which is where I wish I was in the room to push back on the other side here. They pushed back and said that if Head's calling Mal delusional, then he has to be delusional as well. Here's the one caveat before we listen to what was actually said. It's not delusional when you are on the side of history that the winner is on and you are calling it like it happened. For example, DJ Head, had Kendrick lost this battle, had Kendrick's tactics not worked, let's say Family Matters took over, let's just say Drake dropped another song somehow after Not Like Us, or Not Like Us never happened. Let's just say in this hypothetical world that Drake won, the public perception was that Drake won, and DJ Head was sitting there saying, nope, didn't happen. My homie won. He had better bars. You know, I know him. He meant he had deeper bars. You just missed the point. You didn't understand it. He won. He won this debate. I would consider that to be delusional. And I think Head would probably agree with that. In fact, the definition of delusional is this. Delusional describes someone who holds a false belief or belief that is not based in reality, even in the face of evidence to the contrary. I do believe that there were certain points in this conversation even where Mal appeared delusional. I'm not saying he's a delusional person, but the statements that he's making in the face of other facts appear to be delusional. So this is what was actually said.
You said today, like, nobody can convince you otherwise.
About what?
About your stance on
who had the better bars?
Who won or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So to me, like, for instance.
But why is that delusional for me? And it's people that write music and rappers that rap at a very high level that feel the same way. So
to me, that's just not a very whole human. Fuck music. Anybody who has a stance that you can't convince me otherwise of anything, no matter what you present.
No, not anything. I'm talking about these bars that you can't convince me that.
So what I'm saying is, as opposed to having that approach, the approach will probably be, present it to me and I'll make an assessment. You shutting down the presentation of any assessment, to me, that's more of a personal thing than it is a rap thing.
Me shutting down.
Like you saying, nobody can convince me otherwise, no matter what.
That
you're shutting down any and all energy.
That Drake didn't have the better bars?
Correct.
Yeah, because I listened to the music.
That's true.
And I trust my ear and my brain.
I feel you. But that's just not where I am. So that's just what I say.
So do you feel that if somebody doesn't have the same opinion as you, they're delusional?
No.
Okay, so I guess I'm trying to figure out exactly what you're saying.
So when people feel
because me and Mal disagreed, but we talked it out. I mean, of course, the clips went viral, but there were 45-minute conversations with that entire thing. Yeah. So even if we disagreed, I didn't think Mal was delusional and not hearing me. I just felt that's how Mal felt. And music, to me, I don't think you can be delusional because music is like food.
It's only delusional because it wasn't resonating with what other people felt in the battle. That's what's delusion. Because if I was saying, yo, Kendrick is smashing them, but everybody be like, yo, that nigga Mal know what he's talking about.
And other people is other people. Social media, we can't. I'm more, I guess, asking Head what you mean by that. Like, I don't know if he didn't receive information. I just think that's how he felt the same way this way you felt.
Like, here's where, guys, this is delusion to me. Like, we know where Mal's feelings are coming from, which is fine. He has said clearly he's, on Team OVO. He's in Drake's camp. They appear to be friends, quote unquote. He's receiving information. So his opinion is based on that fact. It's not based on the reality that we are living in. The same thing that I would say would happen if Head, just because his friendship, was saying things out loud that didn't align with the reality of what actually happened in a different world had Kendrick lost. We just happen to live in the reality where Kendrick did win this battle. And so that's why some of these things are delusional and we're acting like it's not happening. That's my point here.
No. I'm not saying in that sense. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, to me, like, creating a world in which no one can pull you out of, no matter what it is. I don't occupy that space. Like, I'm willing to, like, I've had conversations with like skinheads, like Aryan Brotherhood, neo-Nazi motherfuckers, dudes with like swastika on their necks. And they're like, I don't like these this group of people. I don't like black people. It's like, for me, I want to know why. And not necessarily for them to change my mind on how I feel, but I'm open to any possibility.
I will say on that point, I don't know that there's a correlation there, but you would call those people delusional, for example. Like somebody who's a skinhead or somebody, they live in a delusional reality because they're not willing to accept any other opinion from the outside. They're not willing to accept any new information. They might even meet somebody who kind of like cracks their brain a little bit because even, let's say they were having a conversation with Head and he was speaking like intellectually, he was having points, he was showing empathy and compassion, and it would break their brain to think that someone they hate is speaking to them in that manner. But I don't know that there's necessarily a correlation. And that might be the point he's trying to make here, though.
Him saying there's nothing you can do to me shuts down the realm of any possibility.
I said there was nothing you could do to me?
Head, is there anything anybody can do to convince you that Drake won this battle?
Present it to me. I'm open to hearing it.
But
Have you heard Family Matters?
You've heard all that.
That's not a good enough.
You don't think Drake rap?
See, like, and here's where you could go into the bag of delusion. Like, they're not like those are two different things. You could argue bar for bar, and I don't think that was the right example to bring up. You could argue bar for bar who had a better, showcasing lyrically, which I'm pretty sure the public can see as well. But let's just say you want to have the opinion that Family Matters was the best song lyrically. Like, cool. It wasn't enough to win that battle. You heard Drake on The Hard Part 6. You heard the way he said, you can talk, throw out 1,000 more songs. I don't want to rap with you anymore. He lost this battle. So like, there's no reason to live in the reality where there's another possibility. So that was point number one. Point number two, which was the part where Mal seemed to forget all of Euphoria. I just thought this was funny.
What was I saying?
Lines that hit from Euphoria. You had your turn. We're going to ask Mal now. Mal, were there any lines objectively that you think struck a nerve from Euphoria?
I honestly can't remember Euphoria.
That is delusion. That is the epitome of delusion. Yes, you can. You remember that song. So it's like either you're trying to be funny, which with a straight face, which is interesting, or you are acting with a little bit of delusion. But let's keep listening.
Like the bar. And I'm being serious.
That's my reaction. That's exactly my reaction.
I really can't remember. I can't quote a single bar from Euphoria right now.
Hey yo,
I'm being dead serious. If y'all have a line that y'all can give me an example of, I would love to talk about it, but I really cannot think of a line.
Okay, so the answer is no. You don't think anything landed at all?
Landed? And
yeah, like that affected, because we're eventually going to
was
get...
Euphoria the one about his dad or
no?
Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
Let's meet the Grams.
Which one is Euphoria?
It's one of the longer records. It's it's when he gets in his Toronto shit. Crody, that one.
Yeah, I don't think
that was a good impression.
Landed.
Fuck y'all.
Yeah, I don't think none of that landed.
New King Crody? Yeah, that one.
Nah.
When I See You Dance.
Also, none of it landing. Like, you could argue that there's even the most subjective Kendrick fan would argue that there's shots that landed on push-ups or Family Matters. Like we all kind of agreed that the Grammy bar was funny. Like, you can give props to the other side. It is okay. You're gonna be all right.
So with Sexy Red, I believe you see two bad bitches. What is it? The braids. The things that were addressed in Euphoria. Do you think that they hit at all, whether to Drake personally or to his image? Do you think that it made anybody go, oh, he has to respond to this?
So that was one thing. I just thought that moment was funny. Any of you guys ever just forget one of the biggest diss songs in the battle? Do you guys ever forget about that? You know what song I do forget about, though, which never gets mentioned because it was there and then it was kind of deleted and we never talked about it again, was Buried Alive Freestyle, which I feel like that night was supposed to be Drake's night. He lined it up with that and Family Matters, and he had the artwork and he had the Dreams Come True, Crody, This Is Where You Die. He even referenced Crody, which was, again, Toronto slang, but it was brought up first on Euphoria, so there were responses to that song, but I do forget about that song sometimes. We also had this moment right here.
I feel like I'm better than both of y'all, which is cool. As an MC and as a rapper, you're entitled to that. But I think it turned into something else after it was just sport.
How do you feel the same way?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I don't think it's like as complicated as people like to make it out to be. Like they try to make it out to be like this huge folklore type thing. I don't think it's that. It's really just, it's simple. I don't really have insight on if he was supposed to be on the record or not. I haven't discussed that with anyone. But if he was supposed to be on the record, then I mean I know the speculation. I'm not an idiot, you know what I'm saying? But if he was supposed to be on the record, then I'm pretty sure that he would have delivered on it. But
I just thought that moment was interesting because we all talk about first person shooter and all the conspiracies going around about that song. And I even presented one where, you know, it was told to me that Drake and Cole were talking about doing a song, and they spoke about maybe doing a Big 3 song with Kendrick, and Drake said, I'll handle it and I'll send it to Kendrick. I want it to come from me as more of an olive branch. And Cole said, okay. And then Drake came back and said, you know, he said he was going to pass on the song, and Cole said, cool, they put it out anyways. And the rumor was that Kendrick never received the request. So I don't know that to be necessarily true. Again, that was just told to me by a credible source, but not somebody who's, you know, 1 degree of separation from either of these people. So take it as you will. But Head saying that kind of leads me to believe that the feature request wasn't presented and turned down, that it wasn't presented at all. You know, even him saying that in the way of like, pretty sure if he was said he was going to do the record or he was presented with the record and the feature, he would deliver, because that's what he does. When he says something, he follows through on his word. That was an interesting moment. We also had this
Speak
one
the
right
same
here.
anymore. We look at life totally different. We're more, you know, we're different versions of what we used to be, because again, you have children and you understand how sacred that is, and you know how precious children are. So yeah, we could be in this situation where we ready to go all out, but at some point you got to be like, nah, I ain't doing that though.
you just brought
So this part I thought was a little ridiculous, because the argument from Maul here was him saying that now that we have kids, Kendrick and Drake both having children, both being family men, both having a reputation of their family to protect, he was saying Kendrick should be the one to have thought about that and say, you know what, I'm not going to bring, you know, the PDF allegations into this, or I'm not going to say certain things because this man has a child. This man has a kid to worry about, and why would I bring up, you know, severe allegations like that when it could affect the perception of him as a father or his child's life? And, you know, or on Meet the Grams, why are you bringing his kid into it at all? This is where people do have a sense of delusional memory, because if you literally look 30 minutes before Meet the Grams on Family Matters, Drake is accusing Kendrick of not being the father to his child. So if we're talking about the effect that things have on a child's life, true or not, any truth, even a hint or not, you know, this could have just been a made up, let's just say this is a made up allegation. That child now could grow up and listen to this song and have a question and be like, yo, dad, why did this guy rap this about me? Like, what's going on here? So if you're so worried about the effect on a child, why bring children into it in that way? Why bring family into it? So if you're going to get mad that someone else brought up an allegation that doesn't have to do with your kid even, just an allegation that was, you know, thrown out during this battle, be mad at the guy who instigated that. Yes, on Euphoria, there were mentions of, you know, like you not being a good dad. That's very different than you are not the dad. Okay, so I just hate that people have selective memory when it comes to this timeline of things. And I hate that this is used as an argument of, oh, he went too far and now he's performing it at the Super Bowl. And now, like, no, Head mentioned it multiple times on here. There was a line. The line was drawn with the family bar. Another thing that, you know, Rory had brought this up and Ma had brought this up about the bodyguards like Whitney line not being that quote unquote harming at the time. But it was harming if you look at what the context of that bar was. The bar was, I be with some bodyguards like Whitney, which was a double entendre for Whitney Houston in the movie. And it was also referencing that she needs bodyguards because, quote unquote, Kendrick hit her. That was the allegation being thrown out there by Drake, which later was actually, came to fruition in the bars on Family Matters. So Kendrick knew the angle that Drake was going to take when he heard that. So he absolutely knew where that was going. And it absolutely was a harsh bar about family and bringing her name into it. So if the line was the fact that you don't mention family, we're here to have a friendly fade, and this is going to be just rap, you cross that line immediately in push-ups by mentioning family. So again, all of this leads back to the fact that you wanted to cross that line. You can't get mad once you cross a line of the other person stepping back over onto your side of that line. You can't throw a huge haymaker and then put your hands up and say, I'm the victim, when you were the one who threw those punches.
Brought up kids. Mm-hmm. Who brought the kids up first?
Exactly.
No, I understand what you're saying in the timeline of things. I understand what you're saying.
So then,
but even in that,
you don't get the right to dictate anything beyond that point.
I'm not trying to dictate shit. I'm just saying, at some point, you have to say, all right, what I'm saying is the worst thing you could say about somebody. That better be a fact. Because once you do that, once you label somebody that, again, somebody call somebody a rat, we know what can happen when you just call somebody a snitch. Mm-hmm. Coming from Carson, coming from New York. We know what can happen. A pedophile is worse than all of that shit.
Okay.
But this is the thing. You don't get to choose what matters to someone and what affects someone. You saying that somebody is not the father of their child, you saying that someone beat their wife, you saying these things about somebody could easily be the worst thing to happen to them. We saw what happened in the Not Like Us video. We saw Whitney there. We saw the family together. It didn't affect, but you don't know what that could do to somebody potentially. So when you're saying like, oh yeah, no big deal, I just threw out these allegations, but you're the one who took it to the next level by calling me a PDF, like, get out of here. That is just not the way things work when you escalate things. You don't get to decide, like Head said, what the reaction is to your actions. This was another interesting part of the conversation that I felt like just delved into like conspiracy theory territory with no proof. Again, I'm not saying, you know me, I love a good conspiracy theory. I'm not saying that these things aren't possible, but the way that it was presented with no real facts, especially about the music industry here, was interesting to me.
The mindset was more, this is just a battle of two of the best rappers and MCs right now.
I disagree. Like Rory said, the songs was just days of like, there was no business around it. Plus, that's not necessarily how the music business works. Rory's put out an album. You could probably, you don't want to talk.
Platinum.
Okay, fine. But,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I love that this is the example for everything. It's my album.
I'm just saying, like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but there's a lot of people who speak on the music business that don't actively participate in the music business.
Right.
That's not how the music business is set up. It doesn't work like that. You don't get to just dictate, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And there's whole departments of people that have to move and do shit when you do shit.
And the conversation, it was a little bit before this, but basically what Mal was insinuating is that Kendrick was taking so long to drop his song because he was getting his ducks in order in a row with UMG to plot how we're going to take down Drake together and what's going to go on. And what Head is alluding to is this man, Kendrick, is in a studio locked in working on songs. He and his team of producers are working on raps. And so when Kendrick's sitting there writing, I'm not saying there's absolutely no one on his team or his management team or PG Lang or what have you that's having conversations with Universal like, hey, something's coming, or hey, be prepared, we're dropping this. But if you look at the way the songs were rolled out, 616 in LA was dropped on Instagram. That wasn't even an official single. Euphoria had no music video. It had no marketing behind it besides the tweet and the cover art. Same thing with Not Like Us. Same thing with Meet the Grahams. So it wasn't like there was this big label spend. If anything, Drake's Family Matters video probably cost a big budget to make. And in fact, he probably had to be the one to let his label know, hey, this is happening. I'm pulling out the red button. I'm dropping this big music video. It's going to be huge. I'm going at all of these rappers on it. I need a budget to go get the Good Kid, Mad City van and go crush it and shoot in a coffin and all these things. He had to get a budget from somewhere. Now, very well could have been self-funded. He's a very rich guy. He could have dropped that through his OVO label. I don't know the business behind it, but all I'm saying is if you're going to point out the business of things, there wasn't much behind Kendrick's songs besides the songs themselves. Now, there's a lawsuit that's still happening. There may have been things behind the scenes going on that I'm not privy to, that maybe Head or Mal are not privy to. That is a potential, and I'm not discounting that fact. But to say that Kendrick was sitting there getting calls from Lucian about how they're going to take down Drake and Kendrick, you think this man wasn't just focused on writing Euphoria and putting that together over the 2 weeks? Like very intricately, then you don't really know much about this guy. He was in the studio working on that. So I just thought this conversation was, again, a little off the point. We also had this conversation about tailor-made freestyle.
Right. So the second thing was the AI shit. The song would have just been would have been a dope rap song without the AI shit. Again, screaming of lack of cultural awareness because you don't. I don't know, maybe I could ask you, would you ever use someone's likeness who's currently walking around?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Why not?
Well, I mean, me, I wouldn't, but in that
I'm
situation.
saying, why not though?
In that, because I don't.
Not in that situation, just in general. Why not?
I mean, but I have though. I mean, we've done skits and things like that where I've acted like other people.
With AI?
Not with AI, but in the terms of acting and using somebody's likeness and personality, not necessarily AI, but with that record, with the tailor-made record, I thought that it was a clever. First of all, we've never seen that in that type of situation, battle or not. So I thought it was a clever play. Everybody, it wasn't like one of those records where it was like, oh, he killing him. It was more so like, oh, that was clever.
It would have been even more clever without that, because to me, again, somebody who has respect for, I don't give a fuck if I don't like you as an artist. I would never. Because I have respect for hip hop, I have respect for my elders. Even people who don't like me as an elder in the game, I would never disrespect them publicly because I respect.
Where was the disrespect?
To use someone's likeness without their permission, who's currently breathing.
Yeah, but it wasn't. Yeah, but see, that's where y'all people lose me in this, because yes, he used Tupac's voice with a filter. He used Snoop. But when we say, oh, he's using their likeness and this, that, and that, like Drake wasn't using that as a single trying to get popping. And that's where I think people was just, this was a moment, it was a battle. It was like, all right, let's have some fun. He's taking too long to respond. You know, what are some of the West Coast, Mount Rushmores, what would they say in this moment to Kendrick if they could speak to him and get him in a room? I think that was Drake's mindset. Like, yo, we doing this or not, bro? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you jumped out there with the verse. Let's do it. Like, I'm fresh off tour. I'm in the studio. I'm not sleeping. I'm up. I'm ready for this moment. Like, what are you doing? And then obviously, the record came out. Somebody made a call to an estate. The estate said, take it down, delete the song. Okay, cool. No problem. It wasn't that serious of a song. I'll delete it off my Instagram or wherever it was living at. It wasn't that deep. So that's why I feel like when people are like, oh, he used, Pac's likeness or he used Snoop's likeness and this, that, and the third. And it's like, bro, it wasn't that serious though. He wasn't trying to make a living off of this song and publish it and push it out to the mat. Like, you understand what I'm saying? So when people carry it that.
What's also really interesting is the hypocrisy of it's not that serious, only going one way. But when it's the other way, it's extremely serious. Or an allegation's thrown out this way, not that serious. It's just jokes. It was just a little fun. Like, I'm just saying things on a song. But then the other side says something, this is extremely serious. He's not having, this is not, like, it's like pick a side, stick to that point and apply all. When you have a filter, you click copy, paste attributes to all sides of the argument.
That heavy, I'm like, bro, this was a battle, bro. This was like a little intent, like, yo, what's up, fam? Like, I'm here, I'm outside, I'm waiting for you. Like, what you gonna do? Like,
I agree with you, but to me, even your rebuttal screams to me that you don't understand. That's disrespectful. Where we come from, where I'm from, that's disrespectful. It doesn't matter what the use case is. You don't violate the elders or the OGs.
Where was the violation at though?
Why did they tell him to take it down?
Because he used somebody's likeness in their tone and their inflections in their voices.
So the violation is using someone's shit without their permission.
Yeah, but again, you losing me because I get what you're saying. Yes, he used the AI, the voice, the filter. I get that part. But it's not like he used it and was disrespecting Pac or Snoop.
And that's what I'm telling you. You don't see the bigger picture is.
The bigger picture is those are West Coast artists. Kendrick is a West Coast artist. And this turned into California versus Drake. Not Kendrick versus Drake.
No.
That's the real.
And they go on, I won't play the whole clip. They go on to talk about how, Mal was accusing this being a whole thing where Kendrick galvanized the West Coast and he had it planned and was plotting the whole time to make it the West Coast versus. But the thing is, this was the moment that it kind of became that, and that was a lot of what Kendrick's rebuttals were on some of the other songs about Drake being kind of culturally clueless. Even on Not Like Us, not going to Oakland was a big line. You think the Bay gonna let you disrespect Pac. So this actually ended up just hurting him more. I do agree with Mal in the sense of that's probably what Drake was thinking. Like, I don't think Drake sat there and thought this is going to be, such a big disrespectful thing. But he was clearly using those voices to taunt Kendrick, so using somebody who we all revere, and clearly Kendrick reveres, to taunt Kendrick. You have to assume that even if the coast doesn't feel that way, that Kendrick is going to, feel that way. You're doing it for a reason. You're clearly strategically using these voices. Now, somebody in my comment section said they should have spoken about how Snoop was out there posting Tailor-Made Freestyle and laughing about it. We heard Kendrick's reply on Whacked Out Murals. So clearly, even if Snoop was okay with it in that moment and he didn't find it disrespectful, you don't get to choose how everybody else views it. Snoop could have gone out there and really jumped out there and said, like, you know what, I think Drake should have been able to use this. And he didn't do that, though. Snoop was just laughing about it. And Kendrick clearly wasn't laughing. And neither was Tupac's estate because they took it down. So, again, I don't think Drake maybe intended it for it to be this serious. But you don't get to decide how people view your actions. And I think that's the moral of this entire battle and debate. That was, me going through some of the top moments that I thought were highlights of that debate. But it was fun. I mean, I think it was entertaining. As a fan of hip hop media who still consumes this, it brought me back to more of a fan, of just the sport of it and of watching these shows. A lot of times when you're in it, you lose your fandom because you're too close to it. Whereas, like, I can't watch certain interviews because it's either I know the interviewer or I know the artist or I know how I would have handled the interview. It becomes difficult to just sit back and enjoy things. But this was one of those moments where I was able to just sit back, enjoy the moment, enjoy the conversation. And here, we are a year later after the Battle of the Century. And hopefully, we're just about done dissecting and speaking about it. We just dropped our year anniversary of The Bigger Picture. You can go watch that. I'll link it below, where we dissect where we were and what some of these songs meant in the moment and how they mean to us or what they mean to us looking back. But as long as people don't drag this out, which it very well might be, there's a lawsuit going on, there's a tour going on, there's other songs that allegedly might exist. So we'll see what happens, but listen, I'm having fun. So I appreciate you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts were on the debate, what your thoughts were on some of those topics, and if there's anything else I missed. And let me know what you want me to talk about in the next video if nobody else has told you yet today. I appreciate you. Hit the like button, comment, subscribe. We're almost at 20,000 subscribers, which is crazy. So hit that button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.